Testing, testing, testing. Testing, testing, testing. How about now? Can you guys hear the audio? All right. So here's what we got going on. All right. So we got the audio back up. So let's give some background here. So what we have done is Pia from my team, she has been so gracious to help us update all the small area FMRs by unit by bedroom count. And she has gathered all the zip codes that we have slimmed down tremendously. We have gotten all of the small area fair market rents, and we have gone into HUD FMR. If you remember how we usually do this, right? We go to Google HUD FMR, click the small area FMR, and then finally we pick the state and the county. And that's how we ended up on this website. And my team has already gotten out there and gotten all of these fair market rents by zip code, by bedroom count, and put this onto the spreadsheet. And what we'll do today is, for those of you in our free Facebook group, it's called Affordable Housing and Real Estate Investing, just like our podcast. I'll be sharing this list because the number one question I get all the time is like, hey, what markets are good for Section 8? Well, it really depends. If your goal is cash flow, you might be looking in a different market. If your goal is appreciation or a blend of appreciation cash flow, then maybe these are the markets that you might be looking at. Because at the end of the day, what we have done is we have kind of highlighted some of the roles where we thought the rent to average median price ratio made a little bit more sense, where the chances of cash flowing, especially for a creative finance deal, is higher. We also have captured some of the school ratings for that county based off of Redfin. And this gives you an idea like, hey, in this zip code, there's some schools that are 6s, 7, 8, 9, 10s. And sometimes these are the areas that might have the highest prospect for appreciation, because a lot of families also want to move to areas where the public school system is great so that they can send their kids. And naturally, every parent wants what's best for the kids, right? I know I do. So that's one way of going about it. So today, after the underwriting video today, I'll post this spreadsheet on, and I got a few more markets that our team is working on and researching, including Detroit, South Carolina. I think I had like one or two more cities in there. St. Louis is in there too. So I'll post this all in the free Facebook group for all of you guys. So these zip codes will at least give you a head start to at least consider where you might want to look at a deal in Alabama. So when I looked up 35810, and I picked this zip code because one, they had decent ratings. It was 6s and 5s. And the rent to price ratio was 0.79%. So I said, okay, that's pretty high compared to some of the other numbers where I saw 0.5, 0.6. So let me give that a try. So when I plugged in 35810 and 35816, which is right below it, 35810, you can kind of see where we are. We are right in Huntsville. Huntsville is a pretty fast growing city. I think they have like a space center, but overall it's north of Birmingham and kind of right in the middle between Birmingham and Nashville. Hi, you okay? I'll help you 1 second. Okay. 1 second, let me help you. There you go. Good job. Sorry, guys. My daughter just needed me for a quick second. All right. So let's go into this deal that we found. So this is in 35810. And like we do with every single property, we just try to do a quick Google Street View drive to see if there are any like big not boxed up, like boarded up homes. And I don't think so. That would be in a situation here because I already looked at the crime ratings and look decent overall. Yeah, I don't see any big issues here. So you can kind of see here that I already grabbed the crime index score from tophap.com. This is when their rating, this was just like literally a month ago. They just changed it up on me. Their crime score was out at 1100. 1100 is sort of like a war zone. This area is a 300. I remember when I looked up this area for where I live personally, it was a 300 where I live. So this crime score is relative to just exactly where I live currently. So I feel pretty good. I feel like I live in a pretty good neighborhood, and it kind of makes sense that they are in a suburb. So the other thing I would do is if you guys really want to look at updated numbers, you can kind of see this address. And if you put it into topapp.com, you can scroll down to the neighborhood section. Let's see if this loads. Sometimes they don't recognize. There we go. And then you can come down here and you can go to neighborhood. And you'll be able to see the updated crime score. So you can kind of see that 100 the national crime score now, and this is now 109. So just slightly above average. Nothing to be too alarmed or concerned about based on everything that we've saw so far. Okay. Now, the next thing I'll do is we are going to look at the market rent. So I go to affordablehousing.com. I plug in the address. Hey, Mike. Good morning, buddy. Good to see you, man. And then we go to the address, we plug it in, and we plug in a bedroom count. And that's usually how I just gauge quickly what the market rent is for this area. So I'm just going to go ahead and plug this right in. This is 1401. So for 25 units within a 0.75 mile radius, that's 1401. I usually consider that to be my floor rent because sometimes public housing authorities will have something that's called a rent reasonableness test, which means that just because the fair market rent is X, if it is a lot higher than what the market rent is, then sometimes you might not get it. I know Mike, for his properties in North Carolina and also in Maine, he typically gets right at the FMR, which is amazing. So every market is a slightly different, but if you guys have not seen our podcast with Mike Caggiano, definitely look it up. It's right on YouTube, on live. You'll be able to find it. He has a great strategy where he invests in condos and townhomes. Amazing episode, and he really knows his stuff. So the next thing we're going to do is grab the FMR and 35810, 1500 and 1800. 1500 and 1800. And this is the FMR for 35810, 35810, 35810. And this is just me simply adding up all the numbers and keeping things consistent. All right. So I'm also going to get the fair market rents for a 4-bedroom. And the reason I'm doing this is just in case that when I'm looking through the photos and I see that there might be an opportunity to add a bedroom or frame additional bedroom, that's another creative way to get additional rents on your investment. So we're just going to write it out here so my investors and my partners can kind of take a look at the deal. All right, let's grab the sales price, which is $174,900. 174,900. Again, if you want the scroll full screen version, you guys can go to youtube.com/@Kent_HE1401. I'm going to put that as my monthly income rent right now. And now I'm going to grab the property taxes right from here, which is $63 a month, 63. And my homeowner insurance is 136. So I want to do 136 times 1.2, which means I'm paying a 20% premium on my insurance just because I'm assuming that the insurance for a rental property is going to be a little higher than typically what you see for a primary residence home. We have 10% for our war chest, or what I typically call our maintenance. So you're setting aside $140 each month just in anticipation that something will break over time. That could be either the roof needs replacing, water heater, HVAC, all the items eventually break. I really don't like when people tell me what the PITI is and what the rent is, and they assume that's your automatic cash flow. Guys, like something needs to get replaced in your home all the time. So it's really unrealistic to say like, hey, every single month, every single dollar that you get through the door is for yours to keep. You know that's something will need to get fixed. That's just naturally how life is. 8% for property management and 3% for vacancy. Right now, I'm underwriting this using a 25% down payment, and this is right now using an 8.5% interest rate. Okay, at 8.5% interest rate right now, you guys see the numbers. This looks like is a negative $120, but just for practice, we're going to go through and look at the pictures, and we're going to get the rehab estimates in there too. So when I look through the property, flooring looks okay. I'll honestly maybe just like a little you just got to buff and shine it, but I usually just set aside some money to repaint the entire home. But for the most part, this home looks pretty solid. Like I wouldn't even replace the vanity in this bathroom. Looks fine. These cracks in the staircase or this paint. I don't even know what that is, but just something to be aware of. Now you see, like this looks like a basement. That might be I'm not sure if they're counting as a bedroom, but they really shouldn't because I don't see an egress in there. So something for me to kind of pay attention to and look out for. All right. So for this home, I'm just gonna go to my rehab calculator. And if any of you guys want access to the rehab calculator, this is something that I got from somebody else, and I just added in my own numbers to essentially match what I typically look for or some of the renovation prices that I have seen in my Scottsdale properties, etc. So right now I got a $1,500 for the roof, just in case there's something wrong with there. I got $500 to clean up the yard, just in case there's any issues there. Especially just trying to keep it neat if I am doing any renovations. I think I only need to paint the place. I don't need to do anything with flooring. So I'm just going to put in $1,591 at $3 a square foot to paint the entire home. And I'm really just leaving it at that. The water heat looks like it was fine. I'm assuming there's no termite issues on this property. So that gives me a $9,300 rehab, assuming that there is another 20% contingency. So this gives me a $128 cash flow. So minus 128. This was assume a 1401 rent, and that gives me a negative 2.7% cash and cash return. This was assuming 174,900. Okay. Now let's go through our best case scenario. What if I can really get the FMR, which is the fair market rents, at 1,500? When I plug this in at $1,500, this now bumps my cash flow to negative $50. Negative $50. And this is assuming 1,500. And this is where some folks, like in Southern California, they're like, hey, if I could just break even on my California house, because I know prices are going to go up and appreciate over time, some people will say that's a deal for them. For me, it's not, because I don't really believe in reaching into my pocket every single month and paying just to own a home. That doesn't make any sense to me. So for me, that's not a deal. However, we could play around, right? This is the whole point of practicing. Well, what would make this a deal? If my investors are looking for a 17% cash and cash return, what if I had bought this property for, I'm just going to play around with numbers, which is pretty ridiculous. What if I bought this home for $90,000? 85? Okay. At $85,000, this is a deal, right? So if I ever see a home that requires only 10 grand in rehab, which is unrealistic, right? Unlikely, but now at least you know, if I ever see a home sub 100 grand, I might jump on it right away because that meets my criteria. And now this gives me a 17.2% cash and cash return. Now, the whole point of all of this is just to practice for you to understand what your buy box is and what a deal looks like ultimately in each property. And this is how we grab all of the different properties. So this is it. At $1,400, $1,500, which isn't really a big swing in rent. So that makes me feel pretty good about the rent range that I'm using, because I already saw in the market that it already has a rent for $1,400. And this is 175. And then at $1,500, if I buy this product for $85,000, it's now 17% return. For other people, your return criteria might just be, it might be 10%, right? So what price would make that a 10% return? How about 110, right? So if you see a home for 110 and that all of a sudden meets your criteria, great. What if you get better terms and you can get a seller finance deal, right? Then you start messing with these numbers and figure out like, hey, what would constitute a deal? How do I adjust terms? How do I make an offer to the owner? Blah, blah, blah. And that's how you would decide whether or not this property is going to be a deal. So let's see, just because it's Saturday, I got a little bit more time today. Let's see if I can look up this property on PropStream and grab the underlying loan. So we might even do some scenario analysis here. Let me see if I can pull this guy up really quick. 1 second. So this is a service. It's called PropStream. And on PropStream, what we're trying to do is look for any signs of the underlying loan. And I want to show you guys how I want to do it. So when you are able to click on the property, you can click on the details once you're in PropStream, and you can click on this tab. It's called Mortgage and Transaction History. And that's usually where you can see whether there's an underlying loan. In this scenario, there is no underlying loan here. Usually there is. So that means someone owns this pure cash. Okay. Well, if they own it outright, there is no existing loan to take over. Well, what if the seller finances it now, right? So we could play around the numbers because now you can figure out what can make it a deal. What if I kept, right? The best thing I learned from my mentor and about how to pitch creative finance is like, hey, I can give you the price that you're looking for. You can give me the terms that I'm looking for. So at 174,900, right? If I gave them 25% down, what if they gave me and finance the rest of it to me at 0% interest? Well, at 0% interest, this would make this a 12% return. Well, if I want to turn this down into a 17% return, 0.1215, whoops, 0.125, sorry, 0.12, interesting, 0.13. Okay, so for me, this is still a deal if I say, hey, I can give you 174,900 down. This is a 13% down payment. And now this is the interest rate of 0%. If I do that and I assume that a rent is $1,500 and now my cash flow is 536, but my cash and cash return now is 17.7, this to me would be a deal. Now I'm using $36,000, assuming $22,000 down payment, $4,000 for the closing costs, $9,000 for renovation reserve. If this property stays on the market for quite a bit and obviously they can't sell and now creative finance might work better for them, we might say, hey, I'll give you 13% down to give you the price you want because you haven't been able to sell it, but you just got to finance the rest of it to me at 0% interest, which we would call it principal only payments. And I'll give you a balloon in 10 years, right? So that's one way you can kind of go about it and see whether or not the seller will go for that deal, because that's the terms that would make this deal a deal for you. That's all it is. That's all it is. Every single deal has some numbers that makes it a deal. And this is how you play around with the numbers to try to figure out. Now, let's kind of do a quick recap of everything that we've done. How did I even start looking in this area? I had my VA. She has gone through a lot of zip codes, looked at all the crime index scores, looked at the median sales price, looked at the school ratings, and then finally decided like, hey, based on the price to rent ratio, this has the highest potential to cash flow if it's a creative deal. Great. Then I went to HUD FMR. I got the rents by FMR, by bedroom count, by zip code. Then I got the market rents by going to affordablehousing.com and using the market rent estimator to grab all these numbers. Okay. After that, I plugged in all the numbers into my underwriting spreadsheet, and it was not a deal at first. So I played around with numbers, and what I did was, sometimes we have learned about subject to, which means that you're buying a property subject to the existing financing. And from that point onwards, we decided to look at whether or not there was going to be a loan in place. So we go to PropStream and we go to mortgage and transaction history, and we saw that there was no underlying loan in place for this property. So that's how I knew that the owner owns the home free and clear. So if they have 100% equity in there, there's no need for me to buy the home subject to existing finance because there is no underlying loan. So I said, well, if this owner owns it free and clear, what can I offer to them? Well, what if they're not able to sell it for $175,000? But I'm the only one that comes in and says, hey, I will still give you $175,000 if you're able to finance it to me. And this is the max down payment I can get that makes it work for my partner. You could give them two offers. You can say, hey, I'll give you an offer for $85,000 because that's what it would take for me to cash flow on conventional financing. Or, Mr. Seller, I will give you a creative deal. I'll give you $175,000 if you allow me to give you 13% down and principal only payments, and I'll pay it off in 10 years. I'll give you a balloon for 10 years. So those are the terms that would work for me and how I would propose the terms. Will they go for it? Maybe, maybe not. But now at least you know what you need to do to make the deal a deal for yourself. And you can make those offer on those terms. And now you just got some practice on one, looking at conventional and also looking at a creative deal. All right. Hopefully this was fun for all of you guys. I analyze the deal every single day for our free Facebook community. It's called Affordable Housing and Real Estate Investing. We are on a mission to create the largest affordable housing investment community in the US. I'm not claiming to be an expert in affordable housing. I just love affordable housing because I grew up in it. And this is my way of helping people and paying it forward. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for supporting the mission. I hope you guys will join our free Facebook group. And the reason I share this all with you is so that you guys can kind of pay it forward to the next one. Eventually, the group will get so big that we're going to have a lot of people paying attention to our community, and we just need more people to kind of pay it forward. This is how we truly solve the affordable housing crisis that we have in the country. And I think when I heard that the waitlist for affordable housing in San Diego, where I live currently, is 12 to 15 years, that's really sad. That's You are robbing some family of their hope when you tell them it's 12 to 15 years, especially if they're trying to move their kids to a better area. When I lived in affordable housing, the waitlist was about 7 years. When my mom got her first rental, she waited about 3.5, 4 years for it. And I think we can do a lot better. And one of the ways that we can all be a little less afraid of recognizing when a deal is a deal is by simply analyzing a deal every single day. And I do this so that you guys can copy everything I'm doing today, especially if you're new. I'm just a little bit ahead of you. That's it. I'm just documenting my journey every single day, and I'm underwriting deals every single day as part of my daily habits. You can analyze the same deals that I'm looking at, put it onto your same YouTube using the same spreadsheets, and I think that will give you guys a lot of confidence in the future, especially if you're trying to raise capital from other investors, and they're going to ask you, hey, why do you think this is a deal? You can show them that you have a track record of all these deals that have not been deals from what you've analyzed. If I'm going to do this straight for at least 100 days, I got another 55 days more. I'm doing it every day. Doesn't matter if it's a Saturday or if it's Thanksgiving. I'm going to do it because I committed to it. And if you are able to commit to it, that will show your future investors that you have incredible discipline and that you actually do what you say you're going to do. And I think that's so important for your own personal branding. So that's it. This is why I do it. And if you guys have any questions, make sure you DM me on Instagram at investwithkenthe. DM me your email if you want to join a free Facebook group or want a copy of the spreadsheet. I have nothing to sell you. I'm just simply doing this because I know this will help. All right. Thank you so much. Have an amazing Saturday, everybody.